memorizing, right? Everybody, do you like the poem? A little bit. Okay, love it. Okay. Now, we're in, let me put my, take your phones out, turn these things off, unless you're a doctor, and then put it on vibrate. Okay? You can last an hour or so without the phone, right? Inshallah. Now, we are in the adab of the talib al-ilm in his life. Is that correct? It's seemingly our last subject in this usul al-adab of a talib al-ilm. We've learned already that when we talk about talib al-ilm, we're not just talking about a talib al-ilm, we're talking about a human in general, right? How things are supposed to be. So I want to just draw a diagram for you guys. Let me just make sure I got my diagram right. So we have the fundamental here, the usul, adab, talib al-ilm, right? Ilm in his, her life, in general, right? So here we're going to deal with two things. There's two sections here. In section 1, we're going to deal with his character. When dealing with his character, we have three things we want to talk about. Number 1, Ibad al-Rahman. In Surah Al-Furqan, this is Surah Al-Furqan. It describes the Ibad al-Rahman, the slaves of Ar-Rahman, and it gives you the characteristics of them. We're going to go over those and the Tafseer for that. It's the last part of Surah Al-Furqan. Okay? When I was a young talib al-ilm and I got to Mauritania and it was time to memorize Quran, the first thing they did, you would think they would teach us Al-Fatiha, right? No. They taught us Ibad al-Rahman. Everybody at the school had to memorize first Ibad al-Rahman. That was our, what we would call in American language, your alma mater, right? Is that the term they use? Your school song or motto or something like that? Okay, so that was everybody, every student knew Ibad al-Rahman. Why? Because it was his disciplining technique. Okay? It was our frame of reference, who we were aspiring to be and who they were reminding us to act like at all times. And you would remember that it's the first thing that we memorized. Does that make sense? Yes. And so that's what we did. First time. Nothing went further. First, you had to memorize Ibad al-Rahman. And it was so unique because in schools outside of the Americas, the schools are hundreds of years old. Okay? Unlike here, things are pretty new. America is pretty modern. Meaning new, that doesn't have the roots that other places have. So you have people, old people, coming in and telling you, yeah, I remember where you go to school. Well, you know about the Rahman, talking to the youngest, so that you know that goes 100 years, 200 years. And at the school that I went to, every person from that family, the Fasture family, for the last 200 years, every man, woman had been a Hafiz teacher. Okay, in that village, every one of them. So that was their tradition, at least 200 years old. Okay, and that, for something about that made it easier to remember, to memorize these ayah. It's that whole, I call it the Ramadan phenomenon, right? Everybody doesn't fast Mondays and Thursdays, but in Ramadan it's easy to fast because everybody else is fasting, right? It's expected of you. So we start there with the character. Then we go to if. If by who? By Rudyard Kipling, the racist, right? Now, knowledge is eclectic. We pick it up wherever it is and we use it and benefit because everything they got from us. And the Prophet ﷺ, he told us that. He said knowledge is the, he said knowledge is the lost item, dalalat al-mu'min. It's the lost item of the believer. Meaning that in this context, there are so many things that we've lost context with, right? We've stopped doing, even from our own traditions and habits of good manners that have gotten lost. So wherever you're reminded of it, wherever you find it, pick it up and utilize it. Don't be embarrassed. Don't stop because it's so-and-so, because the guy was a racist, we're not going to use it. I like to use the example of, let's say you're in a physical battlefield and you see the enemy spear. You're going to leave it there because it's the enemy spear? No, we're Muslims. We're polite. We're going to pick it up and return it back to them. Right? So in this context, we're going to learn if and embody it and use it in our life because it points to Islamic principles that you are going to explain. Okay? And then the other thing is the days of a student. The days of a student are 4. Are how many?
4. The days of a student are 4.
I've taught you this before. I should have. I mentioned it. One day he meets a sheikh and he gets the legacy, right? The wasiyah. That's a great bit of inspiration, right? Then he meets not the sheikh, but he gets a ustad al-mutqin. Okay? A little less level than he might be considered a sheikh, but not on the same level as those senior scholars. And he gets a lesson, right? Then he meets a contemporary, and he studies. They share and they study together. Then on the 4th day, he meets somebody who is thick. He meets somebody who's difficult, troublemaker to him or her, right? And what does he do on that day?
He takes a day off.
He takes a day off. He takes a day off. Now it's in this context, the day off, we call it raha. He takes a break. In this context, this goes and points to the next area here. Okay? Well, it's in this, and this is why it's important that you understand graphs. Knowledge is pictures. What you can see. What comes to mind. You ever hear that before? Yeah. As we wind down and we're winding up into the Arabic language, one of the things I don't want you to do, remember I said you have a list of things to do and you have to have a list of things not to do? I don't want you to write down the word by word definition. Why?
Not complete.
It's not complete? No, it's not that it's not complete.
So the Arabic is much more.
Of course, the Arabic is a stronger language, so then the weaker language can't compare. But so that's just in angles. You know, that's going to express itself differently because an Arabic word has much broader usage. Okay?
You want the full concept?
What I want is, what did I say about a picture? Okay, so what I want to do is skip the long. If I have a long wire and I run it around this room to a device over here, or I have a short wire and I run it to a device, which one you want to use? Because it's quicker, right? So let's say I say the word Jannah. Okay? Everybody say that.
Jannah.
Now, I can translate that as paradise, right? Right? Or heaven in the American language, but I don't trust that word. Okay? It's too close to heathens. And there's something to that, as most of the words that we use from the Vikings have a heathen connotation. Okay? But we're going to call it Jannah. Now, what I can do is I can either write the word paradise there, then what comes to mind when you say paradise? A picture comes to your mind. No other word, no gaga Google comes, right? There's no previous language. When I say gaga Google, because children, you know, that's their first language, right? You didn't say gaga Google equals paradise. Somehow you made them understand what paradise was till they got a picture in their mind what that word paradise was, right?
Yes.
Now, if I say to you, write down paradise for Jannah, every time you think of Jannah, you're going to think of paradise, and every time you think of paradise, you're going to think of what comes to mind. If instead we don't write that English word, we draw a picture of whatever came to mind. We described it. Okay? We get to understand it, even if we spoke it out. Now, you never wrote it down. You never verbalized it. So when you say Jannah, what's going to happen? That picture's going to come to mind. Isn't that quicker?
Yes.
Than having to go there, then back over there? Does everybody follow me?
Yes.
So this is why we do not like definitions in another language. You don't need them so much. And if we do need it because we couldn't find any other way to articulate that particular thing, we couldn't draw a picture of it for some way, you might have to write it down, but you never say that word. You get the point? You get the psychological principles being played there?
Yeah.
So now you know what it is, so now you don't say that. You say the Arabic term, the Arabic word for that. And that is how you're going to learn the Arabic language. You cannot study Arabic. You can't study any language if you're going to learn how to talk it. You got to use it. You get my point? You don't learn language in silence. And that's what you do when you start learning grammar and learning this and that. No, that's not how you do it. You study grammar and all that after you become conversational, after you learn how to talk. Because you need to, Nahu wa Sarf needs vocabulary. Everybody following? Okay. Now, yes, ma'am.
I think that's interesting.
Not wise.
I think that is an interesting statement. But the question that I have for myself is the Arabic word going to give me a new mental vision, visualization of gender?
Yes, it will.
Okay, that's.
It will confirm and deny what you already know. You get my point? That's what the Quran came for, didn't it?
Yes.
It is to confirm things that you already have with you, ma bayna yaday, wa hudan wa bushra, right? And to give you glad tidings and give you more information that you didn't have before. So of course it's going to expand. That's why we say that you have to continue to learn. Readers are leaders. Leaders are readers. Readers are leaders, right? And people who read more live longer, they say. Why? Because there's always new neurogenesis. Why? Because you have what we call tracks to your memory, or nerve endings in your mind. There might be a wire. Now you add to that, and it gets a little thicker. And you can add to it other information, and it gets thicker. So now that wire is real thick, right? It's like a super highway now. Before it was a dirt, muddy road. Okay, and sometimes on a muddy road you get stuck. Now you paved it, you widened it, you put the blacktop on there, and all those other things, you made it strong. Now a tank can run across it.
You can rip, man.
Now you can ride. You guys get my point? And that's what you do when you add to what we call it synergism at the same time. Whatever you learn, we do say there's a few concepts in learning, and learning is an important aspect of learning. Because when you understand the process that you're going through, you can commit to it. And the more you commit to it, the more of your intention is into it, the more of your fiber is into it. Does that make sense? Now, I said there are 6 levels of knowledge, right? The first level is jahl, basit, don't know anything. But accepting that you don't know that thing in completion is part of it. Because the next level is jahl murakkab, compounded ignorance, where you don't know and you don't know that you don't know. So you're ignorant of the fact that you don't know, and you think you know. Because that's what the unspoken is. That you don't know because you think you know. And that's a big problem, because if you think you know something, you don't pay attention to it. You run on the lie. Because there's only 2 things, truth and lie. So if you don't know it, then you don't have the reality. And you're living in a state of falsehood. We talk about Socrates and the people who see the shadows of reality, and they think that's real. So when they see the real thing, they denounce it. You get my point? That is the power of propaganda. Okay? And this is why they put these false images out there. But truth sheds light, true light. Okay? And now that's going to make the thing clear. So we see the next level after compounded ignorance is confusion. Confusion, that someone, I know this thing, but I know it in a different way than he had. So you start trying to put the pieces together. But really what happens in the confusion is an acceptance that you don't know. See, that's why that Jahl Murakkab is lost, because you recognize, well, I don't know. Let me see what I could know. Now I'm looking at the puzzle again. Which leads to the next stage, which is shak, doubt. Okay, I understand it from this angle, but I got enough proof saying it's supposed to be from this angle now. I need help. That's an acceptance saying, hey, help me out. How do I put these 2 pieces together? You get my point? The next level is dhan. I got it. I know I got it, but I'm not going to swear my life on it. Give me some confirmation, ta'keed. And that leads to the 6th level, which is knowledge, which is understanding a thing the way it is in reality, without any doubt, without any confusion. You get my point? So when you know that anything you study, you will travel on them 6 steps. So now you can just see for yourself, where am I on this, so I can know what I should do next. Is it wrong to be ignorant? No. It's not wrong. It's wrong. We say, which is worse? The child who's afraid of the dark, or the adult that's afraid of light? But this is where we're at. If we think about it. So we have to be brave, and most people are afraid that it's going to hurt. Okay? And so they don't try. And they go through the motions pretending, but they know they're not trying. And Allah says, وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ. And we have not been commanded to do anything except for our sincere level best. That's all Allah is asking you, to be honest with yourself. Okay? Honest with Allah. And do your level best. That's what's been commanded. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yes.
Does that answer your question? I'm sorry, kind of sidebar. No, but it's important. It's important because all behavior is belief-based. All behavior is belief-based. So if you don't believe that it can be done, and this is why we keep talking about the propaganda, this is why we have to talk about COINTELPRO and about SAD and these different organizations that have promoted to us that you ain't nothing. And you can't never learn nothing, and you ain't never going to be nothing. Because that type of programming and self-acceptance or belief is going to hinder anyone believing that they can do something. You guys get my point? So it's not that we want to be something other than truthful, but we have to address our reality at all times. And what does that mean? And what should we do now to go forward to stop the things that have happened in the past? Does everybody follow? Yes. So why do you offer salah, Dr. Yusuf?
Assalamu alaikum. Would it be useful to...
Well, answer my question, Shaykh. Why do you offer salah?
For the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
That's an unclear answer.
Because you've been commanded to offer salah.
Do you believe you're going to get a reward for that?
Yes.
A good reward?
Yes.
Then that's why you offer salah. I said all behavior is what?
Positive and negative.
No, belief-based. If you did not believe that you were going to get the pleasure of Allah through offering that salah, you wouldn't do it. Why don't you jump off a building? You believe that it will hurt. You get my point? All behavior is belief-based. We call it the inside-out theory. You're gonna profess whatever you profess is gonna be what do you call it? Actualized, self-actualized. So we have to change what we've been given, so we can reanalyze it and come up with a new understanding of that, so we can believe it properly. Does that make sense? And now we can go forward. These are steps that we have to take. Yes, sir.
Should we...
Not wise.
Could we go...
Not
All right, could we go over again the difference between Shaikh and right?
No, we're not going to go over it too much, but I'm gonna do it.
Could we write it and go over it?
No, because Dr. Yusuf already speaks Arabic. Okay,
Swear.
so I don't want to hold the class hostage for one guy who knows Arabic. We'll get through it in the class, but I will say this: Shaikh is this. Okay, Shaikh is doubting your facts, not you. I doubt your facts. Okay, Raib is I doubt you. I distrust you. I distrust the source. So when Allah says ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابِ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ, it's imperative to understand the context. It's in response to the question, or the question in Surah Al-Fatiha, which is what? Ihdina. Right? The person in Surah Al-Fatiha does not know what to believe, does not know where to get belief from. So he says, Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim, to the straight way, wherever it is. Which is the straight? The path of those who you've pleased with, right? Not the one who've gone astray, and not those who've been angry. So Allah says, this is it. This is the book. La rayb. Don't doubt the source for this one, because that's important. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And you find all the time that this is mentioned about the source of the belief in the book, vital in the Quran. Because if you believe that the source of the book is from Allah, then you can easily accept what has come in that book. I know I said I wasn't going to do it long, but you finagled me. All right, let's go back here, okay, guys?
Yes.
So we're dealing with the Usul Adab al-Talib al-Ilm. Even though it's our last subject, it's not such, they say last, but definitely not least. Because listen to the title, the Usul, the fundamentals of the adab of the student in his life. And we know we have that encouragement to study from the cradle to the grave. Even though we don't attribute it to the Prophet Muhammad, it is an Islamic concept to study from the cradle to the grave. So our whole life is filled with seeking knowledge. Talibul ilm faridatan. Allah's Messenger did say that studying knowledge is an obligation on every believing man and woman. Every Muslim man and woman. So the first thing is our character. And you're getting something of that from studying that book. But once we get to the day that you take off, why are you taking off this day? Because of the other aspect of his character. One is dealing with character, is dealing with avoiding. Okay? He has, well, let me put it this way. Erase this. Don't write that, please. In this size, he's able to identify. That's one. And two, avoid. These are two things, and this is why he's taking a day off. Okay? So here he has to identify an up-and-coming student of knowledge, right? Talibul ilm, and a sheikh. He has to be able to identify a qualified teacher from a con man perpetrating a fraud. How do you spell perpetrating? PER, right? PER. Perpetrating a fraud.
Yes.
That's right, son. So, and he has to be able to avoid the cults and the cultish. Okay? So it's this knowledge that is part and parcel of the life of the Talibul Ilm. Does everybody follow me?
Would you repeat the first?
The first one is he has to be able to identify an up-and-coming scholar from a qualified, already accomplished scholar. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Why? Why does he have to do that?
So you know the status of the,
Status? That's too vague.
The source of his knowledge.
Source of his knowledge is also, that's close. That's it, but you have to clarify.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. Part of the usul, the fundamentals that a talibul ilm has to learn early is how to identify the difference between an up-and-coming talibul ilm and a qualified sheikh.
one that have studied for a lengthy period of time.
Now, I didn't ask you to tell me the definition. I asked you why you need to know the difference.
So you know you take your information from.
You know who you're taking? This is more detailed than that, guys. There's expectations, what you should expect from one and what you should not expect from one. If you learn to go to an up-and-coming talibul ilm for things that are outside of his knowledge base, you're putting him under a fitna, and you're putting a fitna on yourself. You guys get my point?
Yes.
There are certain things they can do, and there's certain things that they should not do and should not be allowed to do. Does that make sense? The rule is you don't take your fundamentals, your usul, from an up-and-coming talibul ilm. Why? And it's vital. And the rule on the opposite end is only take your usul from an accomplished or qualified scholar, senior talibul ilm. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Why?
Because they can mislead you if you
Because the up-and-coming talibul ilm has not finished the usul.
haven't finished it yet.
You cannot give what you do not have.
So you need to find.
They're still working with it, figuring it out with their teachers and with the dunya. So you might be part of their mistakes. You get my point?
Yes.
So don't go to them. What you can get from up-and-coming Talibul Ilm is Quran. What you can get from them is Arabic language. You know, learning the Arabic language from these individuals. What you may be able to get from them, if they are qualified, because some of them are not yet qualified to do so, is basic fiqh. Okay? If they are qualified. Not all are so qualified. That's up to that individual, because those are things that you can expect from them. You guys get my point? And this has been a big problem here in the United States. Big problem. Somebody goes overseas for 6 months, comes back and tells you he's now the imam of the world. And you believe him. And you follow him. And you give him accolades. And those 6 months, half the time he was eating cheeseburgers and in town on the internet. I'm telling you the real deal. So, and the next thing he needs to know, the difference between a qualified teacher, a qualified sheikh, and a con man. Some of these same individuals have come back and been promoting they man who was not doing anything. This is the big scam here in the United States and Canada and UK. A lot of people have not come back. You need to understand that. A lot of us have not come back. And I do not blame them. It is heart-wrenching to come back. It is difficult on the family. And the support is rare. Okay? Rare. This situation here is beautiful. United States. Come back to what? To United States. It's scary. You sit at the airport sometimes 4 hours. Okay? Last time I came back to the United States, I sat there, they took me in the back, they put me in the place where they arrest you, and said, somebody used your driver's license and was drunk driving. We got to make sure it wasn't you. Now, I'm scared. I'm honestly telling you now, because what if they say it was me? You get my point?
Oh, yeah.
What if they say it was you? Now what? Yeah, you got to go through this. Maybe you'll get out. Maybe it's a little bit. Who wants to go through that? For what now? You come back and half the time you throw the class, half the people don't keep coming. So what are you doing this for? You guys get my point? But what you'll find out is you come back, this is the scam. Overseas, guys are studying. I'm going to give you a picture of pre-9/11. We're studying. There's no terrorist camps at this point. Okay, so people are freely studying in different places. Some guys from, let's say, America, Canada, or UK, they come over for the summer. Okay? They come over for the summer. So they're going to be there 2-3 months. They have all this money because the guys that are staying there have to budget. Okay? They've made deals with some of the people in their community like they're on a sabbatical, so they have to show, you know, how much money they're spending. They're pacing it out. If you're going to be in a place for a couple of years, you have to pace your money out. Does that make sense? But someone else who's going back and only going to be there for 2-3 months or even 6 months, he's already saved up how much money he's going to spend while he's there. And sometimes the psychologist says, I have to spend all this money before I go back. You know? And so what they do first is blow up the economy. If you've been living on a house that costs $50 a month, they come and buy one for $200. That's worth $50 a month. Now, when you go try to do your lease over, they say, no, Jack, you know, you're American. At least give me $100. You say, man, I live here with you. La. Hati bin falus. You get my point? Next thing, they don't come to the lessons. They don't come to the lessons. They visit the lessons. And they spend most of their time visiting the other students. Where you from, man? Oh, yeah, I'm from over here. Oh, yeah, you know so-and-so? Oh, yeah, and it's a this big family reunion of who knows who. Then the other time they go, they're going to the city buying clothes and thobes and shoes and stuff like that. Because it's a fad. Okay? It's a fad. And the other time they're spending on the internet talking to people who think they're over there getting knowledge, going asking questions, and half the time they're not asking the sheikh those questions. They're going and asking other students who will tell them, well, the sheikh said about this, that, and the other thing, and they go back and say, now people say, man, he's answering questions from the sheikh. You get the point? Oh, he's responding back to the sheikh. Then he comes back and it's this, You know, this whole, you know, this aroma of untouchability.
That's a scam.
It is a scam. And what they'll do is say, okay, I'm going to translate for you. Now,
Okay.
conversational Arabic does not make you a sheikh. Because you can conversate, that shouldn't take you much time. When we say learn Arabic for the talib al-ilm, that means a master's degree or PhD in Arabic language. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
For the layman, every Muslim, it is wajib for you to be conversational. That is a ruling that people have been running away from since the 70s. You know, I shouldn't say the 70s, the 80s. Oh, do I have to learn Arabic? Yes. Why? Because Allah said Iqra. And He didn't mean it in English. Or He would have said it in English. And He didn't mean for you to understand it except for in the language that He intended it, Arabic language. So you have at that very least to be able to understand what Allah told you and what His messenger is saying. In the visa that they said, so you don't have to worry about someone translating to you. Now, of course, from that they can explain, but you have a basis to follow them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So now these people come back and they'll say, well, I'm going to translate this particular book. Now, that book was not written for the layman. That book was written for the students who are sitting with the sheikh. So half the people are not, that's not going to benefit you. The issues are not the issues of the regular people. Does that make sense? So I'm explaining this and I'm explaining this just based on what the book says. I don't care if it makes sense to you. And half the people don't care. They think they're getting something because he's saying it in English and he read it in Arabic and he said it in English, but it don't make no sense. But look, did you hear what the book said? And we say that this individual can't step an inch away from that subject. If he's asked any question surrounding it, that's when you become very shadid, very firm and severe. Because I can't talk about something else. I can't talk about the surround sound. So I got to keep you over here or you're going to expose me with your question. Does that make sense?
Shouldn't be talking.
But most people don't realize that. Okay? They think because this person's the only one that came back, or they're coming back and they're the most vocal, must be the way it is. He said that Shaikh so-and-so said it, and we still have the white man on our head. Meaning that anybody but a colored person is in charge. So as long as we say somebody else in some other place is in charge, well, then they're in charge. You don't have the ability. Again, behavior is belief driven, right? To be in charge, to make it. There are no scholars in America. That's a lie. There are no scholars in America. What is it? America is just totally void of scholardom? What made those guys scholars? Don't we say take from where they took? Didn't they graduate from the same school? Weren't they their teachers? So why aren't there no scholars in the United States? Because if we say that, then you don't have to listen to me. Not me per se, but that individual. And so this is why we have to, at a fundamental level, learn what a cult is and what cult-like behavior is, so that we can clearly identify when people are pushing you a cult. And in Arabic, the word cult is called hizbi. You might have heard this word. They push it around on other people, but usually the people pushing it are in a cult. Seriously. The emperor has no clothes. And we don't want to say that. So we're going to let the language talk for itself. Once you can identify these things, do you give attention to it? You only enough to avoid it. And that's from your fundamentals. The days of the talib al-ilm are 4. That individual, those cults, the main thing that they have for you to do is to be loyal to them. Not that you learn anything, but you be loyal to them. That is one of the main, fundamental things about any cult. Your loyalty to the cult, no matter what. So if we can identify that as a criteria, that would open up a lot of, eyes. Okay? And one day, just recently, Ben Wiley gave me something and I was listening to it. And I have a problem with this thing that we have where people says, oh, he's calling to the Salafi da'wah. Allah didn't tell you to call to nothing but to Islam. And anything besides Islam, Dina, Allah is not going to accept it. Now, do we follow the Salaf's understanding of Islam? Yes. Things, words, and concepts have to be put in place, in context. And who are these Salaf? Anybody want to tell me?
Those who passed that were upon the way of the
Not necessarily. Did the Sahaba, the first Salaf are who?
The Sahaba.
That's agreed upon. No one else is agreed upon. Do you understand that? Ali ibn Abi Talib, radiyallahu anhu, he set the standard. He said it goes this way. Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. And after that, a man has a choice. This is what he said. Imam Malik said, isn't he one of the Salaf, these four great Imams? Everybody's statement is what? Everybody knows a famous statement. They know the word too. You know what you say it. Everybody's statement is what? Accepted or rejected. Except the one in that grave. Nobody is this ma'soom, this individual. That's a cult mentality. If we say, I'm going to be, oh, look at these Sufis. They're around this one Sufi guy and they're making him his word. Well, that's the same thing if you say anybody. Whether it be Imam Malik or Shaykh Fawzan or anybody. Now, we don't reject anyone's statement just because who they are, but we think about it. Imam al-Shaykh al-Bani, rahimahullah, he said it's knowledge that is the determining factor whether you see if that statement is acceptable or rejectable. Now, if you feel a way, if a person says, my knowledge base is going to tell me if I'm going to accept the statement from Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, from Shaykh Fawzan, from what's the other guy they use all the time? Huh? Ibn Taymiyyah, or anybody, or Imam Malik, then you have a problem. You have a problem. Okay? Because our criteria for rudduhu ilallahi wa rasuli. This is what Islam says. We turn it back to Allah and His Messenger. Everybody else's statement is taken in light of those two things. So we have, and if you, and these cults really get it, 10 years, 15 years, and you still can't tell if someone's telling you the truth or not, then they haven't taught you anything. And you have no knowledge. And you should accept that and shut up. But what they do, they say, I don't got no knowledge. And why are you talking about what somebody else said then? That don't sound right to me. Didn't you just say you didn't have no knowledge? Of course it don't sound right to you. You don't have no knowledge according to you. You get my point, guys? So what I'm saying, Islam demands you to be brave, not arrogant. But what bravery is when you know the truth, you're not afraid to say, I'm standing on the truth. Now, I'm not rejecting I haven't heard anything from Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen that I feel like rejecting. And I haven't heard anything from Shaykh Fawzan that I feel like rejecting. I'm just making a point, even if it's the scholars that we like. Because most of the time we hear good things from him. It doesn't mean that I have to agree with everything he says. Does that make sense? Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So, yes, sir.
Could you expound on the first generation and the two after those?
The first generation, okay. What am I saying? I said I stopped at Ali ibn Abi Talib, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's vital to understand because after that, what happened? That's why you have to learn history. Then the Muslims broke up, right? And a lot of things happened. And people did things because they're humans that some of those things were imperfect and mistakes. We don't spend a whole lot of time focusing on that because that's not the point. You get my point?
Yeah.
And then the next generation, those two generations are in the same generation in actuality. They're the older tabi'in and the younger tabi'in. You get my point?
Yeah.
And so that's why that's one and this one and this one. Now, their methodology is more correct from what the situations they were in at that time. However, do I have to accept that person? No, I don't. The only ones I have to accept is the ones that Ali and those Sahaba understood. I could say, well, I beg to differ. We could see that, I'll give you an example. The Hanafiya don't accept half of those people. Isn't Imam Abu Hanifa from the Salaf? If you want to say, because he's one of the four classical madhab. From the Hanafi madhab is they don't accept nobody except the people they know. That they met. That came to Iraq. They don't reject those people and say they're off it, but say we don't accept their statements. That's the point. That's the application of it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
So to make it clear, I'm not rejecting the first three generations. I'm saying after that point, a man has a choice on who he listens to. And that is the salaf.
Based upon the knowledge, how he understands it.
Yes, based upon the one who's making a decision based on his knowledge.
Right.
Let's say he's an ignoramus is ignoramus. Okay? He don't know nothing. He's from his village or his city, and all he knows is that imam. But he puts his trust in that imam, okay? And that imam tells him something, okay? He tells him something. He trusts that imam's knowledge. Then you come and you say something to him. He don't have to listen to you. He don't know you. Or if he knows you, he don't trust you. He listens to the one he chooses to trust to. You get my point?
Right.
And this will stop us from arguing, because if that person is following, let's say an argument to say, a stance from amongst the stances that the people chose from, right? Then what's the problem? Do we not read the Quran? Where Allah says on Yawm al-Qiyamah, He will make claim to you those things that you were yakhtalifun, that we were disagreeing in. So there's something in our aqidah to understand there are going to be issues that we disagree upon. And that we're not going to be able to get the fullness of those issues here in this dunya. Why is that a problem if we read the Quran and believe in it? Did the Sahaba have the same aqidah? No. This is a lie when people put it forward that way. Did the Sahaba agree that the Prophet ﷺ saw Allah? No, they disagreed about that. Some said all he saw was light. Some said no, he saw Allah. They never came to terms with it. You get my point? Did the Sahaba agree on everything? No. The Sahaba said, what about ruqya? Can you do ruqya? Some Sahaba said, no, you're not going to do ruqya for nobody but yourself. Some said, yeah, you can do it. And some said, only for your family members. Ikhtilaf. Did it cause them to fight? No. Because they have some proofs on these things. We have made the issue, we've pigeonholed Islam for the benefit of some clique. And really, all this stuff is CIA-based.
Thank you.
I mean, we've lost our minds as a people. Seriously. You think something really happened from 70 to 90? No. COINTELPRO turned into PAD. You can look that up on Google. It hasn't stopped. And the objective of that was to disallow any black messiah, according to the language of Hoover. Well, let's look at that. Do you hear any of these groups talking about Hamza Yusuf?
No.
Not at all. But they'll talk about Bilal Phillips. They'll talk about Abu Usama, right? They'll talk about Tahir Wyatt, all who are graduates, PhDs, you know, and Abu Usama's not a PhD, but he went and studied directly with Ibn Uthaymeen and those things like that, right? But who's talking? All the dropouts, the flunkies. What's the guy's name? Abu Khadija. Dropout. Dropped out. What's the other guy's name? They have a couple of them. One's name is Hakeem something Davis. Dropout.
Bilal Davis.
Sorry?
Bilal Davis.
Bilal Davis. That's his name?
Yeah.
Dropout. Flunked out. You're listening to people who flunked out. You know? What's the other guy's name? Hassan Somali. Dropout. None of these guys graduated from Nathan. None of them have ijazah in nothing. Oh, we have tazkiyah. Do you know what tazkiyah is as opposed to ijazah? Tazkiyah has two types. Tazkiyah is like we say, I say this person is good. Let's say, this is what happens, guys. We're overseas, we're studying. We're pretty much the servants of the sheikh in the village, stuff like that. Or in the city, wherever it is. And we're getting it, whenever he gets a free moment, we can learn from him. Some of these guys come from out of town. They come, yeah, Shaykh, barakallah fikum. They sit, they come and eat dinner. We slaughter for them. It's a nice time. They look good. They smell good. They have the appearance of righteous people. So the Shaykh likes them and stuff like that. MashaAllah. You know, Shaykh, we want to go back where I'm the imam. And it's like, oh, MashaAllah, may Allah bless you. You know, may put good in your thing. So they go back and say, man, the Shaykh made dua for me. He said I was a good guy and everything like that. That's what they do. Shaykh don't know you from Adam. Okay? He met a nice guy and he said some nice things. That's what you do anytime, right? That don't mean I study, you study with me, and then I said, yo, this guy should be, nah, this is just, you know, speaking nice to the person. These guys, that's why I say they're con men. They're straight liars. Okay, with objectives that go beyond you. And you see, I just named only black men that they brought blasted, right? That is not an accident. There is no such thing as coincidence in this. Name one Indo-Pac they blast. Name, here in the States, name one white person they blast. One Latino. Nothing. Do you think that's an accident? These people work for the government, straight up and down. And it's a plain thing, and it's only to keep you distracted, to arrest your development, to disallow you from learning the simple things so you can start thinking for yourself and break the bondage of post-colonialism and post-slavery. That's all.
How do you avoid that?
How do you avoid that? You take your fundamentals from a sheikh. You come and you ask. See, what is the purpose of learning? To enable the student to do what?
To remove ignorance from
Themselves
themselves.
and those around.
No, the purpose of learning is to enable the student to get along without the teacher. Okay? And the word to enable you to do something. If after a month you can't do anything, then I'm a poor teacher. Isn't that correct? Are you not able to do, sit up. Aren't you able to do things now that you didn't do before? Are you able to notice things that you didn't do before? So that's what the teacher is supposed to do. Because I told you before, our objective is to now, next time someone comes, you teach the class. Now maybe I might have to be there to watch the first class to make sure you're getting things right. Give some pointers. But we're training each one to teach one. That's what the objective is. So this thing can become causative. The same person shouldn't be teaching the same lesson. In the system, everybody should be growing and expanding upon that. Does that make sense? So the way you avoid it is by learning your fundamentals. This is a fundamental. Only reason I mentioned name is to make it real for you, to put it in some real context. So we can stop pretending like we want to be so polite. No, shame on them. Shame on them. We don't owe affiliation and niceness to people who are trying to destroy your dunya and your hereafter. You should be focused, and that's why with this you should turn away from it. You should be able to identify it and be brave enough to say, that's what that is, I'm going over here. Allah's man said, "Ihris ala ma yanfa'uka wa la ta'juz." He said, focus and be motivated and greedy towards the things that benefit you. And don't get tired. Don't look sideways. Ibn Uthaymin said, be like a jackass. Once you get on the road, you got to beat me off the path. You get the point? We're going to go and we're going to keep striving to learn and benefit without.
Stay focused.
Even if they say, oh, you did, they wag the finger. Who cares? If you're benefiting, then benefit. Because all the cult's going to do is going to tell people, don't talk to him. Don't talk to her. Right?
Yes.
They're going to, that's the da'wah of a cult. We're going to bully you. We're going to socially bully you. We're going to kick you out. MC Light said it back in the day. It's really good. We're not locked out. You're locked in. That's what it is. It's the reality. And it's not our job to argue and fuss with them. We argue and fuss with your friends and family, your students. That's what we're doing to get it right. Now, action is supposed to be well done beats well said. So we deal with the issue here. Okay? We recognize these are the usul that we have to focus on. These are the things that we have to do. Your first job is to memorize if. If you can keep your head, when? Oh, no, terrible, terrible. If you can keep your head, when?
All about you.
By losing this and? Hold on, time out, brothers. Oh, they got the ladies cheating. Listen, guys, you got to memorize this. It's different than there's a big difference from reading and embodying. I don't want you to memorize it. If you keep your head all around you, raising your head. No, I want you to perform it. I want you to present it because that takes you to think about it. If you can keep your head when all around you are losing theirs and blaming it on you.
I was reciting this poem to my grandson. He'll be 3 in October. And I said to him, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs. He said, no, if you can keep your head situated.
Well, you know, they say children say. You know, and I was at a funeral one time at a janaza, and the brother's wife who had passed away was sitting there crying. Okay, and so her granddaughter came in and was like, "You crying, right?" She said, "Little girl, she said, you cry because you lost your husband, right? You can have mine. I mean, you can have my mama's. She'll give them to you. You can have my mama's. She'll give them to you." And everybody started crying. The lady started crying and laughing. You know, children, you know, they bring things up like that. But that was good, right? No, just like that. So you got to think about the poem. You know, if you can, you know, how it says, you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run.
Competent adult.
Right? What this is not being distracted, not losing focus, following one course until you know success. They say the average person in 5 minutes looks at his phone like 7 times. He's on 2 chats. Okay? You know, he's checking notifications and these things like that. How can he focus? You know? So we need to learn how to control the device and not let the device control you. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. And there's so many gems in this poem. If you can bear to hear the truth you spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and then stoop and build them back up with worn out tools. These are concepts. Like as a teacher, half the time, take people to take my statements and twist it around. They're not trying to twist it around on me, just on somebody else that don't know. You get my point? Not Bill Cosby, what's the guy named? Bill Clinton. He said it real good. He said, when I hear what they say about me, I'm against me. So you gotta have that balance.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salat. Hayya ala salat. Hayya ala falah. Hayya ala falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. I want you guys to understand first the formula, the route we're taking, so that you can get it in your mind, map it out. These are all the things we have to cover in this particular section. Okay? The character deals with 3 things. You already know one of them. Days of the Taubah are very simple, right? You know that particular thing. There's the wasiyya, the dar study, yata'allam, wal-raha. If you want to know the terms for those, it's not as important as understanding what you get done. The legacy gives you the inspiration to continue on, connect to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and even to Adam, you know, in that regard. The lesson gives you the bare bones, the structure, and the studying helps you exchange knowledge and benefit that you've received from yours and from taking from the other person, because you see from where you sit, right? Everybody's gonna, remember something different. So these things benefit each other. And then taking the day off is vital and important because you have nothing to prove to these people. Okay? When they try to debate and argue and do those things like that, they usually don't mix with people except to convert them, to bring them over. So you have to, your life is precious. Okay? You don't want to waste your time doing things like that. And I'm not saying give dawah, some of these people are relatives and stuff like that. But make sure what Hajj Malik Shabazz, if you don't stand for something, rahimahullah, you fall for anything. Okay? And so we have to get to the point where we are no longer falling for those things. And that we are being, man and woman enough to say, no, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? I understand. If you have a problem with your deen, go find out, answer. I'm going to continue to do what benefits me in this regard. Okay? And to identify, like I said, an up-and-coming student and a sheikh. So what we can expect to get from each one of them. And never take your usul from an up-and-coming student. Not that he's in himself a jerk or an idiot or some type of con man. No, but he's still learning those particulars. Does that make sense? Unless he's under the supervision of another sheikh. But that's the clause there. Meaning the other sheikh is there or says, okay, you do this. He knows what that student can do. But there's some organization there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So then, and a qualified teacher from these people who are perpetrating a fraud. Let's see what do you have to, what are you qualified? That's what it boils down to. We spoke about tazkiyah. There's some good tazkiyah. Tazkiyah will happen in a good way. Let's say a sheikh writes a book, and then he goes to his senior sheikhs and says, read this book, study this book. What do you say about it? And they say, I check off on this. That's tazkiyah. Okay? That's a proper tazkiyah right there. The information in this book is proper and legit.
So
then we have...
What exactly is the meaning of the word tazkiyah?
It's like a recommendation.
Okay.
Okay? Saying, I suggest that this person you should read this book. Okay? But they use it in lieu of an ijazah. Now, ijazah is permission, a license.
Oh.
For example...
Like a certification.
Right, a qualified certification. For example, to teach Quran, you have to have read the whole Quran to someone. You get my point? Now, let's say I'm a Quran teacher, and I say, I give this guy tazkiyah. Does that mean you should take Quran from him? No. I liked his recitation. Now, no, he may not be a Hafiz Quran. And if he's not a Hafiz Quran, he shouldn't teach Quran without having a Hafiz Quran over him. That's what I mean from like a qualified teacher and an up-and-coming teacher. Because the person who doesn't have finished the Quran can work in a mahdara and teach tajweed and teach whatever he's learned, but there better be a Hafiz there. Okay, you get my point? Supervising, isn't that the way you guys run it? You make sure that all the guys that you have them work, you make sure that they check with you, right? Okay, alhamdulillah, because that's the proper way to do it. He's Hafiz Quran. So in that regard. But so I have ijazah in 10 qira'at of the Quran. Okay? Now, even though he's a Hafiz of the Quran, can he teach the 10 qira'at?
No.
No, why not? What if he can figure it out? When he gets the book and he can read it, he's a smart guy?
He hasn't read it with another.
Because that's not the proper route to do it. Does that make sense? Yeah. As smart as an individual may be, they may make a mistake. And making a mistake by saying Allah said you could say this in his book is criminal. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this is what we're referring to. And I don't mean to I'm not demeaning. This is my man, 50 grand. You're going to see I'm giving him all the jazzes that I can, in that regard. So it's not a demotion. I'm just trying to clarify there are stages, and then we have to recognize those. Okay? And then hold back to those where we should get those things from. And then the cults. What is a cult? I challenge everybody here for homework to look up the description of a cult. And so you can articulate that. Because we learn evil, not to do evil, but to avoid it. Because the only one that falls in it is the one that's ignorant of it. Okay? Some of these cults treat women like they're less than human. If you see them, they're like, you can't walk up to women. And seriously, this is what we call extremism. And it's not from the Sunnah. I said you have more shyness for your wife than the Prophet had for his. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. May I have my, yes ma'am?
Has everyone signed? Oh, no.
Sometimes we knew in our heart that what they were saying was wrong. We just didn't have the knowledge to dispute.
Right, and then now we're gonna stop there. Okay. Inshallah. What is we doing here?